Okay, so here's the third installment of shitty lectures or shitty things concerning StarCraft 2. This next one I wanted to do about the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, and I'm facing a guy called Coil Nova GG, who I faced previously in ladder twice before this game. Both games which I lost to some sort of cheesy stuff, and I didn't have player perspective in the last two, so I won't have it this time either. So in this ZvP, I was against a Protoss, and he did a 2-base Immortal Sentry that I scouted flawlessly, I would say, and the game was hard. I don't initially understand. I didn't initially understand why it was hard when I first played this game, but obviously after watching the replay and doing this thing now, then I'll have a better understanding than just going into another game against the Protoss and then sort of being hard. So I think I said Immortal Sentry, and in Antigua I like to send my first overlord to the right because if I send it, it's just a force of habit where if I send it to here, which is a safe spot, to this space here, sending it counterclockwise first, then my overlord would be safe, and it's safe in both, but in like something like ZvT or some sort of thing, if you send it to here second, then a Marine might be able to kill it afterwards because the overlord reaches it too late. So I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, as usual, but it's just, again, filler for until the game gets started. So I usually open at 14 pool, and then into hatch. Usually, ideally in a perfect world with manners, you would always like to hatch first, but cannon rushes are pretty hard to beat, and apparently they're impossible as well. So I like to get a pool first to stop the pylons and the probes and whatever blocking me, and get a pool first and make sure my lings aren't too late. Instead of like a 15 pool or a 16 pool, I'd like to get like a 14 pool. Some people like to do 13 pool, which is okay too. So since I scouted him and I saw that he didn't have like a giant setup here or anything set up here, I went ahead and got a quick 3 hatch because I knew that he was going to be expanding. And when expanding like this, I find that to have perfect saturation on minerals, you need 2 per patch, so that's 16. So before your other hatches are finished, you don't necessarily have to get drones. You can prioritize overlords and queens first, because if you make drones and go really hard on drones, the drones will end up long distance mining or mining inefficiently anyways. So I start making the queens and stuff quicker so I can start injecting quicker and stuff. And now I know that since I need to inject this hatch as soon as possible, I decided to send my natural queen there instead of waiting for this hatch to finish and then starting a queen. Then my injects will be late, as opposed to me starting a queen here, and as soon as this queen pops, it can inject when the inject popped. So I do get a bit of supply block here. It's not really bad, as my minerals don't really get high and I'm still able to use all the larvae I have. So overlord placement. I'm gonna pause it here for a second. Here's where my ramblings don't get completely boring, is that or because they're out of context, is that since I am adjacent to his base here and close by whatever, air or ground or whatever, I want my initial overlords to go all the way to the back of his base. Okay, because he doesn't have a stalker yet, because his core is still producing. Now, if I sent all my overlords, say like here to be safe, then his stalker won't be able to kill it. Then that's fine, right? But I won't have access to scouting to the back of his base. If I have my initial overlords make it all the way to the back, and by the time a stalker comes out and stops any more overlord movement, then I'll already have some access to some scouting to, say, these two natural gases, which I can see already. And this overlord here can be sacrificed into here. And look at the natural if an overlord that just spawned and came here and went into his base and saw nothing. Because these overlords coming in from the north direction can be made to scout quite frequently however I want, because my base is right here. So if I make an overlord here, if I want to scout his main base, I can just make an overlord here and send it in here through his main. But if I want to scout his natural, then it's going to be pretty hard for me to get an overlord in this region and then scout the natural, because stalkers will deny scouting is what I mean, if that makes sense, or if I do whatever. So I like to get 2 gases on 6 minutes, just because it's a good time to get 2 gases to start ling speed and still be on time with everything. So I'm still making nothing but drones at this point. And I make 2 pairs of scouting zerglings. Now he actually killed a drone, which is very sloppy of me. And some people like to do this. They like to get a zealot and start harassing, or more commonly like to get a zealot and a stalker to harassing. If they get something like a zealot and a stalker, just make like 2 lings, just to be fodder for your drones. Because you don't want your drones to die, you want stuff like lings to die. And lings obviously fare better against zealots and stalkers than drones. And really, you just want the queen to shoo it away, because it's the only ranged unit you have at this point in the game. So I still am completely droning. I keep my eye on these 2 gases, and he hasn't taken them so far. So I'm kind of worried. And now he takes one, and he takes the other one. At 650, that's actually a pretty good time, a pretty macro-y time. It means he's not going to go like 2 base, 2 gas, like 8 gate, some like MC bullshit. Instead, he's gonna tech a bit, probably, because he needs the gas to tech. Because to all in, you don't really to all in doing like an MC gateway thing, you don't really need 4 gases. And then again, you could just take these 2 gases to fool your opponent and into thinking that you're teching, and then not mind the ones in your main, and then it'll still be like 2 gases and some gateway stuff. But it's very easy to scout again with if I sent an overlord from the north into his main to see if his gases are mining and stuff. So I sent a ling in here to see if his Forge's chrono was upgrading, and it was, which I didn't get to see in the replay, but I saw in the game. And that's really why you would ever want to sacrifice your lings, is to see the upgrades, or if the gateway is getting chrono boosted, or what's happening. And you should always have vision of the third to see when they're expanding. So now it's 7:30, and I still see that he has 2 gases, and I should be sending in a suicidal overlord now, which I think I am. Yep, I am. And I go back to making drones, and since I saw the 2 early gas, I decided to delay my Roach Warren a little bit. Roach Warren takes around like a minute to finish, 55 seconds. Usually you get it at a 640, but I delayed it by like a bit because I saw that he got his gases a bit earlier, so I didn't need it quite as quickly. So I got the 3rd gas around 6:30 as well, and now I'm actually floating a bit of gas because I'm not actually making any roaches to defend or anything. I'm just making nothing but drones, and drones only cost minerals. The only gas thing I used so far was the layer and the metabolic boost. So now I get 2 Evo chambers because I know that he is teching up a bit, and I see that he has 2 gateways here. I get the 2 Evo chambers because I'm teching as well, because he's teching as well. I see 2 gateways here. I'm that finish around 8:20. If they wanted to do some light pressure or heavy pressure, then their gateways would finish around 8 minutes if they chrono boosted their cybercore really hard. And now I see that a robo facility just finished, is finished, sorry. And I see that the key part, that it is chrono boosting. And not only is it chrono boosting, I saw an immortal just pop out. And then he warps in more sentries. So here's the problem. It's that, oh, you might think, oh, okay, Robo, he's making gas units, that's tech. And he's making sentries, that's more of a macro play. But if you were really macroing, then you would want to get a third base ASAP, okay? Then you would want your units to be more defensive unit, not just pure sentry. Pure sentry is not really an army that you would want to defend your third base. You would want like something like a stalker to shoo away an overlord. You would want like zealots to tank some scouting lings and stuff. To see just sentry is a very crazy thing, and to see a chrono boosting robo that just shoot out immortal and is still creating units, that's very indicative of an immortal sentry all in. But you obviously their build can be just inefficient, and it could be just kind of bullshit. And if they were really grabbing a quick third base or a third base, then they wouldn't get these gases so early. They would actually like space them out a bit. But then again, they could be doing other builds instead of just Immortal Sentry. It just so happens that I spotted all these 5 sentries in total and a chrono boosting robo. So I actually got my macro hatch quite early in this game because I knew that he wasn't taking his third base so far, so I really need units to either defend against his push if he makes a push, or if he makes or to pressure him if he just takes a late third, and I can get my units out to pressure him. So I got it around pretty early, and I'm actually around at the 59 drone count, and I'm fully saturated on this base with 16 drones, and I'm fully saturated on this base with 16 drones, and I'm actually fully saturated on this base with 16 drones, and now I'm actually making nothing but units. You see I'm making 20 lings. The problem with this, I think, was that I didn't get to scout him a second time. So I didn't get to see all the stuff going on here. Like, the gateway takes over a minute to finish, and I haven't really scouted his main base in an entire minute. I should have just sent an overlord, this one, or whatever, and I'm making an overseer scout, but it's a bit too late. So the game goes on, and surprise, he's going Immortal Sentry, and he's going to push me with a rather large force. And I do get, and I'm making 4 overlords, and I'm should be making nothing but units, and I have a crazy amount of economy. But the problem is that the army at the moment is that his is bigger than mine by around 800 gas because of all the sentries, and he already has a huge army. And so my mistake in this game was that I didn't make units quick enough. Even though I'm making nothing but units, I sort of made too many drones. I have 59 harvesters compared to his 45. So if you do this quick calculation, you have a full patch of minerals requires 16 workers, which he doesn't have here, I guess. 16 per base, so 16 times 2 is 32, and you need 3 per geyser, so that's 6 per base. So 6 plus 32, 6 times 2, which is 12, plus 32 is 44. So when you have 44 harvesters, that's your ideal amount for 2 bases. So mine should be 44 plus 16, which should be, because I have 3 base saturated, should be, what did I say? 44 plus 16 should be 60, right? Unless I screwed up the math there. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. I think I screwed up the math. Anyways, I actually made too many drones because I'm actually fully saturated on 3 bases minus 2 gases. And he's only on 2 bases. Technically, to be ahead of him in economy, I only need more than 2 base saturation. I would say a safe number is around 8 drones. If you ever heard of Liquid Chef's rule of drone saturation, he wasn't on Liquid at the time, it's really old, is that to have an economic lead on your opponent, you only need to have around 8 harvesters more than your opponent. And once you have 8 harvesters more than your opponent, you should really start making units if you're unsure you can live against their push or not. So I have a total of I should have a total of 16 workers over my opponent in this game, in this situation, but I really needed only 8. So having 8 more larvae and 8 less drones, I could have made 8 more units to defend this push, which is really why the Immortal Sentry is push is so strong, because the timing that you need to, the window that Protoss has against Zerg is so big, because a matter of 8 units can, or so small, or whatever it works, okay? A matter of 8 larvae can change the entirety and the situation of the game. And my macro hatch isn't even finished yet. So for this macro hatch to really work, okay, let's go back and see when I started the macro hatch. For this macro hatch to really work, I needed to have gotten it earlier. And I got it around, I don't know. But a full production cycle for Zerg, for Lings and Roaches is around 30 seconds, I would say. A Roach takes 27 seconds, and a Ling takes 24 seconds, and say 30 seconds for your unit to get to your rallied position, say here. So we'll say around 30 seconds. And I started my macro hatchery around 8:30. So to fully get a full production cycle units worth, I would need to make the macro hatchery at around 8 minutes instead of 8:30 to 8:40. So that's when you should really get your macro hatch. I think someone asked me that before, when I should get my macro hatch. And in this game, I got it when I was already 3 base saturated. Then I started my macro hatchery. When his push came, I didn't really get like his push, even though the map and he is like this, and it's sort of imbalanced or not imbalanced, but favoring Protoss, because he can just warp in from his main base. Then I didn't really get to fully utilize my macro hatchery. It was just about to finish as he was already commencing his push. So to get a full production cycle's worth, I really should have gotten my macro hatchery around 30 to 40 seconds earlier. And to fully utilize a macro hatchery, I need to inject it, and I should have started Queen also earlier, so I could inject this. Now I started too late, right? So just a quick note, a hatchery, the time to construct a hatchery is 100 seconds, and the time to construct a queen is 50 seconds. So usually when you want to make a queen to inject a macro hatchery, or any hatchery for that matter, you should start your queen when the hatchery is halfway done. And usually you would be making your layer when you're creating your macro hatchery, so I would advise getting a macro hatchery queen earlier at your natural, because it has to walk up to your main. And so he's already commencing his push, and even though I may be ahead of him in supply, the army supply, is 60 to 55, which you might say, oh, I'm ahead, but it's Protoss, and Protoss units are good, and Zerg units are shit. And his army, even though my army supply is higher, his army costs more than mine. Even though mine costs more in minerals, his costs over me by, what, 800 gas? So seeing this army here, so when is the best time to engage this army? Is it when he warps it in here, or when he... Because he's going to attack my third, because he just broke down my rocks. So he's just going to go into my third like this way. So which time is it best for me to attack him? In this area? Well, you're not answering, so actually, because you can't. So that's a stupid fucking question of me to... Sorry for being retarded. It happens. I think Idra said that to someone. Obviously it's this, because it's from the bottom of this ramp all the way to, well, here or here. And that's like a huge concave angle able to be achieved by the Zerg. Even if he force fields, he would burn many, many force fields just to counter me. If he already goes into here, then he can hide here, and it would be small, but he would still have to force field a lot, and then he would have to wait for the force fields to run out, and then march up to actually attack my economy, because he's going after my economy, not for my units, unless he can trade for my units in a good position. And if once he goes in here, 3 force fields can just sort of cover his path, and then he can just move up and force field this twice, and then this entire third base is like his fucking playground. So the best way to encounter this is going through here, and this is not actually what I do, because I know that this would be the best place to engage, but my units are very low in number, and a lot of my units are still rallying out. My macro hatchery hasn't been able to be used yet, and instead, even though I'm making a bunch of units, a lot of the army supply is actually tied up in production and rallying. So it really goes to show that that production cycle of 8 larvae should have really been spent on units, because not only would I get more units, I would get them out quicker to engage them in a more favorable position. So you might think that it is cheesier to have less drones and more units, but when you're engaging something as gimmicky as a fucking 2-base Immortal Sentry all-in, or not, well, it should be an all-in if you defend it correctly, then you would you just have to make sure that you have more economy. Not substantially more, just more enough to make sure that his shit dies. Because he's not escaping. The only way he's escaping is to march all the way from here, all the way back and through here. And then he has to kill this Ling and then build a Nexus if he's macroing and wanting to escape. And this is like huge open area as opposed to this, which is narrowly tight. Like somebody's insert like vagina joke here. Okay, so continuing on, I do engage him here, and look, he does 4 force fields, and they're shit force fields, because it's hard to force field in this big open area. It's more easier to force field 3 force fields here, because you can see, okay, look, this is one spot and this is another spot, and I need to force field this spot so I can divide this evenly into 3 force fields. Or say I see this ramp, okay, it's from here to here, I need to force field twice. That's the diameter of 2 fucking force fields to cover this ramp. Or I look at this ramp, 1 force field, that's a diameter. The diameter of fucking this all the way around here is fucking like a bajillion force fields. I'm joking, it's more like twice the amount of this. So you are much better suited to engage out a Protoss in here. So I do back off because I know that the force fields are baited out, and by having force fields like this, his army would engage my army in a very, very cost-effective manner. He'd probably lose like 1 or 2 units as opposed to my like bajillion units. And so I back off, and against a Protoss like this, who has like 6 gates, it should be, there's there's 7 gates. Okay, 7 gates, and he's not producing any more Immortals because Immortals don't rally as quick as warp gate units do on a proxy pylon. So he's reinforcing this purely gateway units off 7 gates. I am supposed to be off 4 hatcheries, and that should be a lot. I haven't even injected this yet. So technically, you want to delay your Protoss opponent as long as possible, as long as they're not going into a favorable position, like into your 3rd or something like that. So this part, he just goes in, and I'm sort of powerless to stop it, because I've already lost a bunch of units, and I can't really engage this. And now, here's where, like, the asshole starts to get torn open, is that he force fields, using my hatchery as a blocking spot, and I go around, and I back off instantly, because I know that these 3 force fields are going to totally fuck me up. And immediately, I evacuate my drones before the sentries can get into a spot. Or, well, he could have force fielded me, I guess, if he was really, really good, but we're both scrubs. We're both only high masters. And I evacuate my drones, because I know that this base it's fucked up. To stop it from being fucked up would be impossible. I have an overseer here, and I see that he is an observer, and I think I start making a Hydra then soon, because to make Roach Lane you don't need that much. You only need a bunch of minerals, but since I have more access to gas, I created this newly because I knew that I was going to be oversaturated with 58 drones in 2 bases. And again, I said you needed 44 for two bases optimally. And so he's staying here, and I know that I can't engage him. And he's sort of moving out into this open area, and I know that. And now I have a huge army, which is what I should have had in the beginning. And if I engaged his army like this, then he would be forced to force field in a shitty manner again, because this is a really open area. So look, he does 3 force fields, and my army's still going in. And this is really him just getting overconfident. This is his mistake, and I had my mistake. And his mistake is going to cost him his army. Or I think it does, I don't remember. But my mistake costed my economy. So these are 2 different mistakes. They obviously differ in scale, in size, because his Protoss 2 base all-in is dependent on his army. It's not dependent on his economy. My macro is dependent on my economy, not dependent on my army. So losing my army, I don't really give a shit about. So far as I can macro. And I still see he hasn't grabbed the 3rd base. The correct option for him is just to fucking back off and grab a 3rd base. And then it would be a Zerg and a Protoss 3 base against 3 base. And he has a huge fucking army with most of his sentries. And his sentries only get stronger over time because they are recharging energy. Just like infestors. Because people think that, oh, in a late game you just keep getting more energy, and you know that's more power to your army without actually spending any more money except time. So he tries to, his mistake is he tries to engage me, and he does like a fucking flurry of force fields because he's fucking panicked, and my army fucking gets in. It's like a fucking bad condom or something, you know. So my shit still gets in, and my priority is that I need to fucking kill this army, and still he force fields. And he loses a big chunk of his army. And resources lost tab, it shows that he's ahead of me in 1,000, but before that engagement, let me just fast forward it here. So say right here, he's ahead of me by like 1,200, and by the end of that, he's ahead of me in by like only 1,000. But not only is that significant, but it's significant because Protoss units are more valuable than fucking Ling Roach, because he lost a bunch of gas, whereas I lost only minerals. You see our army tab is actually still relatively the same as before in ratio, but he just has a bunch more gas than me. So since I am more based on my play is based on my economy, not my units, it's perfectly fine for me to trade units instead of trading economy, which I already lost my 3rd base to. And so he pushes me again, and the problem is that he didn't have as much energy on his sentries. He has actually maybe like 4 more force fields, not too many. So I know this, so I'm a bit, instead of just running away, I just try to take what I can for his units. And my units are still rallying onto here. And now since he's in a really big area with low force fields, this would be my best chance to engage. So he tries to go up my ramp like this, and although you can force field it off with 3 force fields on either side of the ramp, my army is actually much more roach based. Units. I have 34 roaches and 14 lings, as opposed to his 3 immortals, 7 sentries, and whatever the fuck that is. His very few force fields. So my roaches can shoot past the force fields, and since the terrain does not actually, even though it's a tight choke where his army is, the surrounding area is not actually made of tight chokes. So he knows that any reinforcements that I will make will come from this north direction, and already pre-existing units would come from the south direction, and that there will be no more units coming from the south direction. So he force fields the north spot first, and engages my army to the south, and he has officially run out of force fields. as you can see. None of his 6 sentries have any more force field. And this is where I decide to... I got pretty lucky with the force field there. But I decided to engage his army. And remember that if I hadn't gotten so lucky with these force fields, then he would have just killed me outright. But since he did make a really small mistake of pressing the issue of trying to kill me, he actually prolonged the game by a lot and lost a lot of his sentries. And I targeted 2 immortals. I don't know if I don't think I targeted the sentries, but I remember I needed to target the immortals because the immortals were fucking retarded, because that's what makes Immortal Sentry. And now I made a Hydra Den, because against Immortal Sentry, Hydralisks are very good. They kill Protoss units, and they have the highest range unit out of the Ling Roach and whatever. So I burrowed this Ling here, and I got burrow because against something like Immortal Sentry, if they force field and you fight and you back off because of the force fields, then chances are your roaches are damaged, your units are damaged, so you can regen health with the roaches. I haven't really done that because my units aren't as fucking battered as they're supposed to be. And now the units lost tab shows that he lost a lot more than me, but my 3rd base I just started, and because I lost it earlier. But the one thing going for me is that I do have 1-1 on my upgrades. He only is 1-0. And he's starting to get Colossus. I don't know if he saw my Hydra Den or not. No, he hasn't seen shit. And that's really the beauty of Protoss, is that they don't really have to scout shit. They just have to do gay shit, which they did. And he just scouted me from the fucking War Prism. So, like, it's pretty bullshit how Protoss can be. Like, I had to scout him, and I still get completely butt-fucked. And I did make huge mistakes, don't get me wrong. But the only thing he saw was that this pool wasn't even finished from that early probe. And he saw that I was taking quick 3 bases. And at the end, he just doesn't know jack shit. But I have to know a lot more than he does, right? Obviously, I could have seen the Robo Bay, but I think I do see it later. I see the Colossus or something. Because I come in and I poke up with units. And I know that he can't really force field me as efficiently for all the way here, because his army was lacking sentries earlier on. And right now, the game goes on, and I say that he's on 2 base Colossus, and it's actually quite strong. Even though you think you killed his army off, he's actually can just remake everything, and he sort of can just keep making units. He's still actually on 2 base. I hate it when casters say like, oh, but this base is running dry. It doesn't fucking matter, because his income is the same as mine. It's the same as someone who started freshly on 2 bases. It's just that the longevity of this base is much less. But he's still mining efficiently. He's actually mining optimally from 2 bases. It doesn't matter what the number is on the minerals, unless you're counting for until they actually run out. You're still mining completely efficiently. So he's making a huge fucking army, and you have to remember when you're against something as delayed as this, they're always going to be making nothing but units. I think my phone's ringing, but I'm not going to fucking answer it because it's probably not for me and someone else has to answer it. Is that they're making nothing but units. They're not making tech. They're not making probes. They're done making that. They're done with this RoboBay. They're done with the Colossus. They're just making nothing but units. And he's just going to go push me again. And I'm just going to fast forward this because this cast wasn't really supposed to be about a Immortal Sentry. It wasn't supposed to be about a big macro game, but it was against a 2-base all-in, an Immortal Sentry for that matter, that transcended into this fucking Sentry Stalker Colossus bullshit. So again, he comes in here, and there's a pause obviously as he says that, and he goes in here, which is actually the worst thing. That again, I should have prevented this. I am maxed out, but I don't have 12 supply from the corruptors that are what needed to attack this Colossus Stalker Sentry. Arguably, I could have just engaged him because I did have Tunneling Claws and Burrow, but I didn't want to take that chance. And or maybe I should have took the chance, but Colossus are pretty good because, you know, they shoot laser beams and they kill everything. So I let him just take my base, and I make sure I don't lose my drones again by burrowing. Because I killed his observers from before. And here I decided to engage in this relatively open area. The problem was that I should have waited a bit so he could have... So my army, instead of having like these roaches in the back, it's not very obvious, but these roaches aren't doing jack shit. These, how many is that? 8 plus 5, 13 roaches aren't actually doing jack shit. If I waited so my army could get from here to here instead of here to here, then I could fit this area. I could fit a lot more units. And I think my phone keeps fucking ringing. But I just want to finish it and get through this cast. And I backed off because I don't want to lose my entire army, because he can just keep making stalkers. And now he's starting to mine out. He's actually losing mineral patches. And I'm perfectly fine with that, because if I lose my army, then I can't defend my third, and then I'll just lose the game, as I said in the previous cast. Yeah, I say that crazy ass round, but I'm pretty sure I just microed bad and I didn't really play it well. He takes a hidden expansion. I didn't actually see this. I had an overlord here and I saw something weird, but I just assumed that he would come here. I guess he just... Yeah, I saw these probes come over here and I was kind of weirded out. But apparently he took a hidden base right here. And this is just completely my mistake. But the game was over because I just came in and killed him. Because, as you saw before, his army consisted mostly of stalkers and not sentries. As he only had 4 force fields in that fight. And he sort of just lost his shit and now it's maxed. Even though I was on 2 base for most of the game. For the later part of the game, I finally got the 3rd base up and I got this gold up. But wasn't mining too much from it. As you can see, these mineral patches are only like halfway down, and these are relatively new. And he just sort of loses the game. So I hope you learn something, and that the thesis of this fucking game, of this commentary casting, was that you really need to, against Immortal Sentry, you really need to get your macro hatchery earlier. And a good time would be starting it at 8 minutes and starting the queen for it, obviously, because a hatchery without a queen only makes a larva like every 15 seconds. If you get a queen along with it, then it'll make an extra 4 larvae every like 50 seconds. I think inject takes 40 seconds. Yep, one every 10 seconds as opposed to 1 every 15 seconds. But you also get that larva once every 15 seconds. So, you know, you're only getting extra for a 150 mineral investment of a queen, and a queen always helps out. It helps out with war prisms. It helps out with transfuses if you're bad with injecting energy. But I just needed 8 less drones, a quicker macro hatchery to start at 8 minutes, a quicker macro hatchery queen to start before halfway of the building time of the hatchery, of my macro hatchery, and this game wouldn't have been so fucking weird. And he sort of threw it, but you can't really say that he played with intelligence in this game, because he just sort of did an Immortal Sentry all-in. I'm not saying he's bad, I'm saying that the way he played this game is completely fucking retarded, and it should be frowned upon by every Protoss member in the community. But every member in the community, or most members in the community, are retarded anyway, so thank you for watching.